Hello, everyone. Melissa here from Endo Empowered. I'm super excited to be back for another Tea with Mel series. And today we have got nettle tea with a little bit of molasses. So, molasses is very high in iron, and so is nettle. And so sometimes when I need a little bit of a pick me up, I'll have these together. If you have low energy or you're just feeling a little bit like, you run down, then sometimes a little bit of iron can be really supportive. So, nettle is actually some people call it a weed. Most things that are really beneficial, they call a weed, it seems. But yeah, nettle is something that often grows, particularly in Europe, and it's those really prickly leaves. So I tend not to pick it myself because it's quite uncomfortable. But you can just buy the tea bags and have the nettle that way. So, who is here with me today? Would love to hear who's here. If you have any questions, if you would like to share your story, or if you feel that you want to have um, personal insights about your story. Today we're talking all about surgery and whether you should have surgery, not have surgery, what the pros and cons of surgery are. And I really want to kind of crack this open a little bit because it is a question that I get asked a lot. And it's always a tough question to answer because it is a very personal choice and a personal depending on your situation. So, would love to hear from anyone that's with me today because, as you guys know, I love hearing from you and I love getting questions and comments and just knowing I'm not just talking to myself. So, feel free to share with me today. So, what we are going to talk about today is I'm going to share a story because last week you guys really loved hearing stories from other women. So, I thought I'd share a story of someone who was contemplating getting, she didn't actually have the option of surgery. She had ovaries stuck to her bowel. And any kind of surgery that involves the bowel is very dangerous. Basically, if they perforate the bowel by accident, then your body can go into sepsis, which essentially means you can actually die. And I've had women who've shared their story about that as well, where they literally died on the operating table due to surgery. So it's not obviously risk free. I think sometimes we can just dismiss surgery like it's something we just go in, it's a half a day and it's done. So I think it's important to recognize that it is something that can be risky. Not that I want to scare you guys, because obviously it also comes back to the surgeon, and if you're seeing an endo specialist and all those criteria in deciding who's actually going to perform the surgery is part of that decision making process. So, would love to hear, where are you guys at? Are you debating surgery? Have you had surgeries? Like, where are things? Have you got a situation that you're worried about where you think you may need to have surgery? So please share in the comments. These are not live, these are shared only on the live space. So nobody else can see the comments that may be coming to watch this. So if you are feeling worried about that, you can just share, and feel free if you don't even want me to mention your name, because I don't have to mention your name. So the story I want to share with you is from a client who I worked with for quite a few years. And she had this bowel stuck to the ovary. And as I said, she couldn't have the surgery because they were worried about, that proximity to the bowel. And through working with me and other methods, over time, she has managed to separate the bowel from the ovary. And so it is possible to shift whatever's going on without surgery. So that's the first thing I really want to stress, is that you don't have to have surgery for all treatments. There are situations where surgery may be required. And typically, when I meet with a client who has anything that is impacting your health, that actually, where the adhesions in the body are impacting your health, that's where you may want to really consider surgery more seriously. Okay, now, to explain what's going on in terms of endometriosis and in terms of what's actually happening here. Okay, so if we have the bowel and the ovary and they are stuck together, what's actually causing that to stick together? Okay, the biggest thing is that there is adhesions that are causing that to be stuck together. So adhesions are kind of like when you cut yourself and you get a scar. It's like that. Okay, so your body is trying to repair that area. And the reason it's trying to repair that area is it believes that there is a bigger issue with these dispersed cells in the general abdominal cavity. Okay, so endometriosis is a bunch of cells that have decided to hang out in the abdominal cavity instead of where they should be. So they're dispersed all over the abdominal cavity, and with your monthly, those cells grow and proliferate. Now, what's happening is actually that the immune system is responding to those cells like they are a threat. So there is a elevated response by the immune system to those cells. And when that happens, there is heightened inflammation in that area. So it's sort of simpler to explain if you think of hay fever. So you maybe don't know if you guys have had hay fever or if you're familiar with it. If you have hay fever, then your body is overreacting towards pollen. So you get pollen coming into the nose, touching your eyes, and the body overreacts towards that pollen. The pollen itself is not a real threat to the body. I mean, it doesn't have anything that could be threatening to the body, but the body overreacts towards that pollen as it sees it as a threat. And so this is why then, you get puffy eyes and you get swollen, your nose gets all runny, because it's trying to exude that what it feels is a threat by just watering you out, essentially. So it's like, let's flush out this supposed enemy. Okay. And it's a histamine reaction. So that's why you take antihistamines. It's because there is heightened response. And so it's that histamine that is causing that. And so by taking an antihistamine, you're lowering that response. But the question is, why is there that response? And that response is due to the immune system believing that this is a major threat. And the similar thing happens with endometriosis. So depending on your reactivity is how intense that reaction can be, and why in some women there's not as much of that inflammatory response, there's not as much pain, there may be less, buildup of those adhesions, etc. So there's various factors as to why that reaction occurs. With the adhesions, they form because the body is trying to heal that. So it's like, okay, I'm going to try and, fix this area that it feels is an issue. And so that is ultimately what endometriosis is. Now, the fact is that your body made this situation, your body created this situation. Your body is responding to these random random cells. The immune system is responding with this heightened reaction. Your body is doing all of this, it's creating that response. And so then the question becomes why? Why is it reacting to these cells? Now, there is a study which is phenomenal. Basically, they found that 90% of women actually have these random dispersed cells in the abdomen. So it happens to just about every woman, but not all women develop endometriosis. And it's something like 40% of women actually then develop endometriosis. So why is that happening? Is the big question. Why is there this reactive response? And I personally think it has a lot to do with toxin exposure, and therefore the immune system is not quite responding how it should. It is in this kind of hypervigilant state because it's been bombarded by toxins and things that it doesn't quite recognize. And those toxins can be advanced toxins. It could be there's an imbalance in the gut. There could be sensitivities to food that are triggering that inflammatory response. It could be like dioxin has been shown to trigger endometriosis growth in monkeys. So it's a very clear, kind of study. Dioxin is what's found in Roundup, which is used on pretty much most crops, like mainstream crops like wheat, cotton, etc. So if you're, and that's where the debate also comes back to, well, is it the wheat that's causing the issue, or is it the glyphosate and the things that are sprayed onto the wheat that are causing the issue for women? So just to come back to what endometriosis is, and there is this overreactive response. And there is a saying that I share with my clients, and that is, your body put it there, your body can unput it there. The key is to work out why is there this response, why is this overreaction, and actually working with the body to lower that response, lower that inflammatory response in the body. And thereby, that proliferation is lowered, thereby the endometriosis growth is lowered, the pain is lowered, the bloating is lowered. All the factors that are part of the picture of actually having endometriosis is lowered once you take away the reason, those imbalances. You have to look at the imbalances that are part of the picture as to why your body is reacting this way. Having surgery doesn't solve the imbalance of why the body is reacting this way, which is why I guess I need to really stress my views on surgery. Yes, there are circumstances where surgery is required if there is some kind of life-threatening aspect or it is really inhibiting your ability to have bodily functions. So these might be if it's affecting your kidneys. So sometimes the urethra that goes actually out to allow the bladder to empty, that may be affected. To connecting to the kidneys themselves, so those tubes that run down to the bladder, those may be affected. And if those are affected, what can happen is that the urine that's supposed to go out actually doesn't get released. And it's room for infection, and it therefore can affect the kidneys. And you don't want to mess with that. Okay, that is life-threatening. Kidney is important, and so we don't want to be messing with that. So if you have situations like that, that's where surgery may be required. If it's affecting your bowels, so your inability to actually go to the toilet daily, and yes, there are other factors that may be inhibiting that may come back just simply to diet and what you're eating as to why you may not be going regularly. But if you have pain with going to the toilet, particularly at the back, of the body, I don't know how to explain that, but, the pouch of Douglas, that area, if you're having restriction there, if you're having to push really hard to get anything out, that is an indicator that the bowel may be affected. I don't want you guys to stress. It may be affected, it may not. It may just simply be that you need to shift your diet and that there's just not enough fiber in your diet. But those are some of the key areas. And, this is where really having a conversation around what's going on for you, um, is something that's really helpful, because sometimes we can be overly anxious, overly worried, and yet, with a proper diet regimen, with looking at other aspects of your life, really fixing those imbalances, a lot of the time, a lot of the symptoms go away by themselves. So, those would be scenarios where I would really look at it. If you are in daily pain, that is not necessarily an indicator that things are as bad as you think, because I've had women who've had daily pain and we've still managed to support them and get them to a place where they're not in pain anymore and they don't have the issues and they can have a baby and all the things that I know you guys really desperately want. Just to be pain free is just a major goal. And so it's not necessarily, pain is not necessarily a true indication of what's going on. So there are women who have severe pain, like extreme pain, but they have very minimal endo. That histamine response is just really heightened. There are women who have major endo, like it's everywhere, and they don't have any pain. They only realize they have endo when they try and have a baby, and they figure that out through that journey. So the pain isn't necessarily an indication of the severity of your endo. And oftentimes, our pain response is actually an indication of our anxiety or our stress response to situations or to things going on. And so that's where working on your emotional state, your mind-body connection, releasing some of the fear, some of the beliefs around yourself and, what's possible for your body and things like that can be really, really helpful. So, right, I'm going to take a breath and you guys are going to share some thoughts. I'm referring to something called Mayan massage. Mayan massage can be helpful, and I'll talk about what we can do for release of some of those adhesions, if you like. What about very large cysts? Is surgery then only option? No, definitely not. I have had women who have had very large cysts, and actually had this client who came to me and she said, she had several cysts and she also had fluid and, there was a whole lot of stuff going on. And they basically said to her, you have to have surgery. It's not optional. Like, they were really worried about it. And they said, you have to have surgery. And she really didn't want to have the surgery. And so she came to me as a private client and we developed a program specifically for her. She literally had 6 weeks. They said to her, you have 6 weeks and you have, by the 6 weeks, you have to have the surgery. Anyway, she followed everything that we suggested. And literally it was a bit stressful, because it's not a lot of time. Like, typically we like to work within a 3 to 6 month time frame when you look at the whole body. But she had already adapted quite a healthy diet. She had already implemented a few things along the way. So I felt that it was doable. But it was still quite a lot of pressure to try and achieve something in such a short space of time. Anyway, we looked at all aspects of why cysts may develop in the body. We looked at, hormonal aspects, toxin aspects. We looked at every conceivable, reasoning behind that. And then we approached those aspects for the body. So we used natural methods to address those cysts from every angle. So it was internal on the belly applications, in the vagina applications, herbal recommendations, dietary recommendations, really any way we could get things in, we used them, and looked at lots of different references and research to formulate a plan based on, what was available in terms of shrinking cysts naturally. And there was also a mind body aspect to this, which I do need to stress, because sometimes we think all the stuff going on is just physical. It is not physical. There is always a mind body aspect to any related condition. And particularly when you look at where it's settling, why is it settling in that area? What's going on there? So, um, anyway, she did all the things. She did everything. She followed exactly the program that we recommend. And within the 6 weeks, she managed to shrink those cysts. Some were completely gone, some had shrunk somewhat, but she managed to do it. And the cool thing was that, she managed to do this. The scary thing was that I'd actually prepped her before her consult when they did the ultrasound, because I was like, not doubtful, but I was a little bit nervous that I'd kind of built up her hopes, and I didn't want her to feel, like she should stop if she didn't get the results so quickly, because it was literally 6 weeks. And I remember the day that she went in, I said to her, look, just prepare yourself. It may not have shifted, I mean, she had experienced some pain relief and she, felt better. But, there was this part of me that was nervous. And so I wanted to prepare her for the possibility that things may have not shifted. And anyway, she went in for that ultrasound and she came out and she texted me straight away, I can't believe it. It's actually shrunk. It's just phenomenal that, we've managed to do this. And it was super, super exciting. The sad part was that the doctor didn't even want to know what she'd done, just didn't even care that she'd managed to do this naturally. So, it really that really annoys me, because like, when you want to know what helped your client and have that insight and that knowledge that you could then share with others so they could prevent having surgery, because surgery is not a minor thing. It's not, oh yeah, just come in for half a day, we'll cut you open and we'll just remove that and it's all good. It's not. They make it sound simple. But every time you go for surgery, they are cutting into your body. Now, you guys know, just cutting yourself, like if you cut yourself with a knife on your hand or something, it hurts. It really hurts. They're cutting deep. They're going deep. And that response in your body is not being acknowledged. There is an inflammation that happens with that cut. So you're driving inflammation every time you're having that surgery. Now, that seems counterintuitive when you think about what endometriosis is. It's an inflammatory condition. So we're going to cut some more. We're going to go in and remove the endometriosis, but actually by doing that, we're creating more inflammation. Does that make sense to you guys? Like, it just doesn't make sense that this would be a treatment for endometriosis. I get that there is a necessity to first, maybe have the laparoscopy, see what's going on, see, okay, it is endo, it's not endo. I get that there are situations where surgery is required. You've got lots of stuff sticking together and it's inhibiting simple requirements of your body to do, going to the toilet, things like that, basic requirements. But when it's used as a treatment plan, that's when it gets me annoyed. And the reason it gets me annoyed is because I did that. So I don't know how much you guys know, but I have had 7 surgeries for endometriosis. And the surgeries were literally scheduled in every year and a half. Oh, we're just going to go in and clean everything up. Now, there's so many things wrong with us. I can't even begin. But the crux of it is, you're not addressing the endometriosis. You're not actually looking at why is it there, what's triggering this, and how do we resolve this. What you're doing is cutting out the mess. It's like, okay, let's actually look at the reason. Let's look at the cause. Let's address the reason it's there. and not just try and clean up the mess after the fact. So that is the biggest thing. And I think the reason that I'm possibly more anti-surgery is because this is the picture that I see. Oh, I have a cyst, a large cyst. Oh, let's just have a hysterectomy. Like, where did you go from it's a cyst that can be, successfully shrunk, natural methods, to let's have a hysterectomy? It's very extreme. And there doesn't seem to be like a logic behind that way of thinking. To me, it should be first do no harm. First try the natural methods. First try shifting your diet, shifting your stress levels, moving your body, creating circulation in the body, doing things to actually encourage healing by the body. And if that doesn't work, if you're not getting results with that, then fine, surgery may have to be something that you do. But there is a responsibility that I feel isn't being adhered to. There's a duty of care that needs to be given to a patient. And I don't see that with that kind of story, with those kind of examples. And unfortunately, I hear those stories a lot. I hear a lot of women who are being told, well, you have to have surgery, so and that's why I really wanted to do this live with you guys, because I feel that it's just so easy, and so it's so, oh, you have to. And the decision isn't being made out of a logic. A decision is being made out of fear. Oh, I have to have the surgery because, what if? It's not coming back to, well, let me really consider how I've supported my body. Have I been looking after myself? Have I been really nourishing my body with really good foods? Have I been stressing out? Have I been moving? Have I created an environment that actually encourages healing? Or am I just going about my days not doing any of those things and then somehow expect something to change? There is a responsibility. We do have a responsibility to our own health and the outcomes that they have. And I don't say this in a mean way, like, it's your fault. It's not your fault, but there is a responsibility. It's like, if you don't have a job, well, you're not going to have money. Well, there's some element of responsibility within that picture. We need to take responsibility for our life and how we survive, and the same goes for our health. So, yeah, I feel like I'm really giving you guys some hardcore lessons today. So, yeah, but I guess the thing for me is that what annoys me is this needless suffering. Needless suffering of women with endo, needless suffering with endless surgeries that just create more adhesions and more inflammation. And like, oftentimes when women have had a lot of surgeries, they actually feel worse, which makes sense when you think about, well, you're building more adhesions in that process. So it's sort of counterintuitive, as I said. And for me, that was the case. By the seventh surgery, I was like, I'm done. I can't do any more of this. My body was worn out and it wasn't helping. I still had the same amount of pain. Yes, I'd have a little bit of relief for the first few months after the surgery. So I felt like, oh, well, great. I'll do all the cool stuff I want to do in that time in my life. And then it would all come back again. So then I'd be like, oh, okay, it's back again. Oh, well, I guess I'm going back for another surgery. I wasn't resolving anything. I wasn't moving forward. I wasn't actually addressing it. And so then the question becomes, well, how do you address it? How do you address the endometriosis? How do you stop it from growing? And that is I guess the bigger question, where are you guys at? Tell me, what are you feeling? What are you thinking? Has any of this been too much today? um, just feel free to tell me. Like, it's sort of hard to gauge what you guys are thinking because I can't see you. So I'm just on a rant today because I'd hear these comments from women about surgeries, and yeah, it upsets me. It upsets me because I feel that it is unnecessary suffering with no resolve. My husband and I actually came up with a song. Don't cut it out, it'll just grow back. I might actually have to release that song to you guys because, yeah, it just annoys me. And then there's people who claim that excision surgery is better, that there's different types of surgery and that you've got to see a specialist and all these things. Yes, there is, there's some indication that excision surgery is better at removing the endometriosis, but it's no guarantee that it's not going to come back because the imbalance that triggered the growths has not been resolved. We need to resolve the reason for the imbalance, not just cut stuff out. Okay, would love to hear from you guys. Oh, this tea is nice. Okay, right, so the question now becomes, what do you do? What's the solution here? Well, the solution is to really focus on how do you lower that inflammatory response in the body. Figure out what is driving that heightened reaction towards those cells and then lower that. And that's quite a big discussion. But essentially, you look at what is the key driver for an inflammatory response in the body. A lot of the time, I can put it down to diet because when you eat rubbish, you have less of the nutritional tools that your body needs to feel well. So the simplest explanation I can give you is if you think of a windmill and the windmill has all these spokes, and those are the spokes that your body needs to run efficiently. So that includes like your vitamins, your minerals, phytonutrients, enzymes, there's a whole lot of stuff. Okay, and that's running nice and smooth, and that's when you're healthy. Now we take out a few of those spokes, your body will still run, but it'll run weird. It'll go good instead of a nice smooth circle. And when we don't eat optimally or we don't absorb optimally, we are not able to get the nutrients and tools that our bodies need to function well. And I often see women either on a very restrictive diet, so they've decided, okay, I'm going to do FODMAPs, or I'm going to do vegan, or I'm going to do some form of diet with the goal that that will make them healthy, but they're actually nutrient deficient in a lot of areas. Or I see the other extreme where women have just they're not exploring this idea enough. They don't believe that diet can make a difference. They don't believe that, that what you eat has an influence on how you feel. And so you have these two extremes, but neither of them are particularly focusing on the real thing that we should be focusing on, which is how do you nourish and replenish your body with what it needs? So there are foods that can really provide for the body, that can really heal the body because they are highly nourishing. So those are the things that you want to have. You want to have things that are highly nourishing, and it's not the diet that heals. I just want to correct that. So it's not the diet that heals. It's not the foods that heal. It's that you're providing an environment where everything is provided for. Your body has everything that it needs, and then the body can do the healing. So when we eat well, we have everything, and then the body is not struggling to do what it needs to do. Um, the other thing is that there's foods that you could be eating that are actually driving that inflammation up. And there are certain foods that do that, things like gluten, sugar, dairy. The reason that they do that, sugar is a given, like sugar is just on its own, is an inflammatory food. And I don't know if you could call it food even, um, but gluten and dairy is because in many cases women actually have a reaction to the proteins found in those foods. The body struggles to digest the proteins in those foods, and so they cause a reaction in the gut, and then that triggers an inflammatory cascade of events to happen. Yay, lots of questions and comments. Yippee. Okay, let's start. What are my thoughts on hormone therapy? I will do a separate live on that because it's quite a big question. But overall, I'm not a huge fan. I did all of them, literally tried them all. And once again, they're not addressing the reason the endometriosis is there. They're not addressing the imbalance. And often they're a trigger for more imbalances in the body, particularly on the gut. So the pill, many of the hormone treatments adversely affect your gut pH, which thereby affects your ability to absorb nutrients. So coming back to the whole really nourishing your body. But I will do another live, possibly next week, for you on my thoughts on hormone therapies. Yeah, that's a big topic. Okay. Right, then we have... I didn't quite get your question, Julie. If you wanted to just ask me a question there. Okay. Yeah, so Julie's shared a few things. Yeah. So, yeah, Julie's saying this will be her last surgery and treatment for Sibo. Yes, Sibo is often linked with endometriosis. So Sibo is it's called essentially small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. Basically, bacteria that's supposed to be further down is in the small intestine, and that causes all sorts of reactions. This is often found with endometriosis because if you think about it, adhesions themselves can attach to the bowel, and that can inhibit the release of your poo. I don't know how to explain it. And because of that, there's a buildup of bacteria, and that can cause the bacteria that should be in the lower bowel to be in the small intestine. And that can cause all sorts of complications. So, but yes, Sibo is often found with endo. So great for you that you found that has helped you. And Julie asks if I would use Synarol. I used Synarol when I first was diagnosed with endometriosis back in my 20s. And I was in love with Synarol. I thought Synarol was the best thing ever because I had no pain, I had no period, I had no nothing. And I thought this was fantastic. And I remember going back to my gynae and he's saying, no, sorry, we have to take you off this now because you've been on it for 6 months. And so we don't recommend that. And I was like, why? It's so good. It works. What's the problem? And he said, unfortunately, Synarol affects your bone health, and this could lead to osteoporosis in later life. Well, I hadn't been told that before. And also, I wasn't very keen on taking something that could have an effect on my bone health. So, yes, look, we'll do a whole one on hormone treatments next week for you guys. Obviously, you have a lot of questions on that. But they are not fixing anything. They are creating imbalances. These are not normal. They are synthetic hormone treatments. They are not real. They don't belong in your body. and they will have an effect. They will have an effect on your long-term hormone health, your bone health, your mental health. I mean, I've shared yesterday with a client who was on Marina and found out that there is a 234% higher risk of developing rheumatoid arthritis by being on Marina. I mean, it's do your research, guys. There is consequences to these hormone treatments. Okay. Um, yeah, I mean, yeah, I am not a fan of that. And, I think that we don't give the body enough credit on that it can heal. And that as long as we provide the right environment, it can heal. And pumping the body full of synthetic stuff and all these things is not supportive of healing. It's not. Yeah. So I'm sorry to say that, but that's what I think. Okay, we have some more questions. Okay, so another question. I have 2 cysts on my left ovary and I'm working a lot, lifestyle, dietary changes. Yeah, I don't think you need to have surgery for cysts. I really don't. We have a program on how to shrink cysts in 60 days. So try that first. And you'd be amazed at what the body can do. You just have to also believe, guys. You need to believe the body can heal because it can. There's enough evidence, not just me, but lots of women who've joined my programs and followed my work that have healed because the body can heal. It just needs the right environment to do so. When you provide the body with the right nourishment, the right, circulation in the body, you shift some of the beliefs. Whatever you think, your body will respond. Think of it as simply as if you watch a scary horror movie, your body responds. You get all sweaty, your heart rate goes up, you're sort of on the edge of your seat, you're cramped up. There's no real danger here. It's a movie, but your body responds. So if you're telling yourself over and over again, these cysts are going to burst, or I'm worried about these cysts and they're just going to keep growing, and repeating those messages, your body goes, oh, okay, well, you want more cysts? I can do that. Let's imagine water flowing over those ovaries and flushing out the cysts, dissolving, whatever resonates with you guys. But like water is generally one that a lot of women like, is this idea of clean water flowing through the area and flushing everything out. It is powerful. I know you guys are going to think, oh, this is all woo-woo, whatever. It's not. It's powerful. The mind is powerful. What we believe affects how the body reacts and responds. Okay, let's go back to some of these questions. I'm glad that you feel that diet makes a big difference, Julie. It's huge. And it's really about, it's not just diet. Like, diet is one huge aspect, and really looking at, okay, how can you nourish your body? And anti-inflammatory is great, but I'm more a proposer of how do we really provide? Avoidance is always the tack a lot of women take. I'm not going to eat gluten. I'm not going to eat dairy. I'm not going to eat blah, 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 long list. What are you doing to nourish your body? What are you doing to provide for your body? What foods are you choosing based on the nourishment level, the density of what they can provide for your body? Those are the ones you really want to focus on. So, that's one component. The other component is, how are you moving? What are you doing in terms of circulation in the area? Because when you look at what a cyst is, there's a few questions on cysts today. When you look at what a cyst is, it's a little pocket of stuff It's sitting on the ovary in most cases. Okay, it's a little pocket. What's in that pocket? It's usually old blood, waste. Your body's gone, there's a whole bunch of stuff here that I don't know what to do with. I'm just going to chuck it in this little pocket and let it sit there because, I don't know what to do with this. I need it. I actually need the waste man to come and clear this away. Why is there waste in that area? There's a reason there's waste in that area. There's not enough circulation in your abdominal cavity. There's not enough blood flow. There's not enough waste removal systems in place to encourage that to be dissolved, for that waste to be removed. So what can you do? You can do massages. The mind massage is a great one, and I have a video on how to do that. So if you go on YouTube, you'll find my video, how to do mind massages. It's actually ranked quite high on the YouTube searches. But mind massage is one. It creates circulation in that area. We also use this, as I said at the beginning of this, is there are techniques and methods you can use to go into the vagina, applying things on the abdomen, taking things internally that help dissolve those cysts. And there's a lot because we're trying to tackle it from all aspects. And why are we doing that? Because we're resolving the reason the cysts are there to begin with. Cysts are a pocket of waste that your body doesn't know what to do with, and we just want to clear that up. Now, there can be imbalances within the natural flow of, so your hormonal flow and when you ovulate and things like that, where those cysts can form out of that reason. So looking at, okay, what's your hormonal picture? Is there a hormone imbalance going on? That can be a factor as well. So, do you guys have any other questions? I feel like I always give you guys so much information and then I don't know if I've overwhelmed you. Yeah, so Shandana, you shared basically the second surgery was because of the adhesions developed from the first one. Yeah. It's a cycle, and this is what it really, I'm going to say, this pisses me off. It pisses me off that this is used as a treatment plan. It's not a treatment plan. Fine, there are situations where you might need the surgery initially, or maybe it's, something more dire, but not when it's used as a treatment plan. It is not a treatment plan. Surgery is not a treatment plan. Address the reason for that inflammation, address the reason for those growths. So, yeah. Now, with coming back to adhesions, there was a couple of requests last week with people wanting to know more about adhesions. I wasn't sure how familiar you guys were with adhesions, if you wanted more information on that, because I can share a bit more on adhesions specifically. So if you'd like that, just let me know. If you guys have other questions, other topics that you want me to cover, you can either leave them in the comments now, or you can write to me at support@endoempowered.com. And then, once I can find you, I can let you know when that is going to be up as well. Because, yeah, there's so much to cover, and I often feel that I don't know where you're at in terms of, what knowledge base you have. And so I want to make sure that I really give you guys lots of value with these. So, okay, so we've got 10 more minutes. Is there any other questions or anything that I maybe have not covered? Yeah, so I don't know about having another surgery. If you've already had 2 surgeries, I'm not sure if I would recommend having another surgery. Excision isn't necessarily the proclaimed cure-all, you know, that people make out. I know there's like a whole big group dedicated to this on Facebook, which I did get kicked out of, which I thought was funny. But yeah, I have the clients who come back to me after those surgeries. So I'm the one who they come to and they say, but Mel, I had excision surgery and I'm back in pain and I'm back to having all these imbalances from a year ago. So, as I keep saying, you need to fix the reason for the imbalance, and then you're not going to have the imbalance. No, it's sort of kind of obvious in a way, but there's this idea that endometriosis is something you have to live with for the rest of your life. You're never going to go away. There's no cure, is the word they use. Yeah, there's no medical cure. There won't ever be a medical cure because you cannot fix something that is essentially got to do with the immune response in the body. That's like trying to cure every single immune related or inflammatory related health condition that exists. And there's no cure for any of those. And there won't be, because you cannot cure something like that. It's the immune system over responding to something that it feels as a threat. It's like hay fever is not really an issue. It's not it's not the pollen that's the problem. It's the immune system responding to that pollen in a funny way. That's what we need to look at. So, I hope I haven't given you too many bombshells today. Let me know where you're at. Thank you so much for being here. I haven't got any other questions that have come through. Yeah. If you want to know how to shrink cysts naturally, the Endo Empowered Academy is currently at a stupidly low price. It will be separated out. It will be more money down the track. So if you want to get that, I recommend getting that in the next couple of weeks because, yeah, it's all going to change. I also have a very exciting announcement to make for you guys. I am officially a qualified naturopath as of yesterday. I have finished my degree. Woohoo! So I'm very excited that I'm finally a qualified naturopath. I've been studying for 7 years. And so, yeah, it's finally happened. And I can't believe it's actually over because it still feels a little bit weird not to have all this work to do. So, yeah, so I'm very excited about that. And yeah, anyway, that's it from me. If you guys have any other questions or anything, that's all I have to share on that today. And let me know if there's any other topics you'd like me to cover. And I'll see you guys next week.